Okay everybody, so this is just a little quick tutorial on using the acrylic in case you've never used acrylic paint before. So I have my Bristol and I have my black and my white. I have a paintbrush. You have a kit with different types of brushes in it. And then I also just have, I actually really like to use toilet paper because it's really soft for these water soluble materials versus something like a kitchen roll, which can be a little rough on some of the painted surfaces. So a couple things to remember about acrylic. First of all, it's always going to dry darker. Second of all, the more water you add to it, the faster it's going to dry because you are basically pulling apart the paint. And then finally, that if you apply the paint thickly, it's going to dry with a lot of texture because it's just plastic and pigment. So if I use my brush here and pull some paint, what we call charging the brush, then I can use it to paint a pretty even layer of paint. I've not added any water, and I can just sort of create like an even layer of paint by pulling the brush back and forth, and then you can see changing the direction. Now, if the paint feels a little too stiff, you can definitely add a little bit of water, but a little bit is going to go a really long way. So the more water you add, the less control you're going to have in terms of the way that the paint reacts to the surface. So by that I mean if it's too liquidy, then the paint will really spread very quickly on the hot press Bristol. So kind of really try to control how much water you add. Never add water directly to your pile of paint you have on your palette. And I know that I have a glass palette, but you have a grayscale pad palette. That's meant to really help you to see value. It's just basically a piece of waxed paper palette that's got a gray value to it. So I know it might look a little bit different from your setup is what I'm saying. But when you have your paint out on your palette, never add water directly all the time to the pile of paint because you're going to thin it out and also you're going to speed up its dry time. So one of the things you can do is kind of like what I did there, where I have like a little puddle of pretty wet paint, and then I just added some fresh paint to that puddle. So you can see, try to use the brush to apply the paint as an even surface. So sometimes less paint is more, but with a little practice you'll find exactly how much paint you need in terms of like to get the coat that you need. When I'm painting here, if I have too much water in my paint, then you'll see that its adjustment of water to paint ratio, it might help it go on easier, but when it dries, it's going to dry perhaps a little bit more translucently. And so that's something to kind of be conscious of. There's not a lot of chance on this project for you to create a range of translucent versus non-translucent paint. It should be pretty even, which is the style of Sal Bass. But you can definitely work with the material to try to find the right mixture of water to paint for it to apply in such a way that it's easy to handle and apply it in such a way that it's even and not highly textured. When I paint, you can kind of see I put the brush down. If I just touch the brush, the surface, it kind of stays the same exact thickness as the bristles. However, if I push harder, the bristles are going to open up and increase the size of the stroke. Okay, and so depending on what you're trying to do, you do want to be conscious of how much pressure you put onto the bristles. My suggestion to you is, if you don't have a lot of experience with acrylic paint, that you follow the process of making the Sal Bass in his style by keeping things pretty minimal. And I think that his style really helps to give us a strong sense that minimal information can be just as effective as too much information. So if you're going to create any text, make sure that your layers are dry before you try to add text. And you're going to do a better job of the text if you sort of paint around the text. So say I had a letter L in here. So you're going to do a better job of painting around the text, leaving the bristle unpainted, than if you were to paint the whole bristle black and then try to add the white to the top of that. So it's not really a complicated material to use. It's just something that might take a little bit of time for you to get a handle on. To clean your brush, just use water. And I keep a nice jar of water next to me to wet my paint and to clean my brush when I need to. And then when you're done painting for the day, clean your brush with water and a little bit of dish soap in the palm of your hand, and that will protect the bristles from any of the plastic and the acrylic drying in the bristles, which is problematic. Okay, so email me if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing your work.